Tim Burrows, you are very welcome to JSB Talks Digital, the podcast, and because I'm filming this to the vlog as well. Thanks for joining me.
Oh my gosh, the opportunity to join JSB Talks? Who wouldn't do this? Thank you so much for having me, Joanne.
So I'm in Galway and you're in Florida. We're on different time zones, but it's great to catch up with you again. I know we speak frequently on the topic of law enforcement and social media. Now, I'm a civilian, right? And I operate in this sphere. But you used to be a law enforcement officer and for over 20 years as well.
Absolutely. Well, see, that's the nice thing is we're both the civilians now, so we can make fun of them, we can criticize them in all jest. Yeah, I did 25 years as a sworn police officer up in Toronto, Canada. Now I reside down with my wife and 3 children in Florida. Much better climate. I don't have to shovel snow, and it's a really nice way to spend your working retirement, shall we say.
And so, when you worked as a law enforcement officer, at what stage did it become evident to you that social media was going to play an important role in your day-to-day policing operations?
It was in 2008. At the latter stages of 2008, I was doing I was looking at Facebook through the scope of what my wife was doing with it. And I thought, that's interesting. At the time, I looked at it more from a criminal aspect. In other words, this was going to cause problems down the road in the world of criminality. In 2009, I started working as a communications representative for my department, and I really started looking at social media as a way to overtly communicate what we wanted the public to know, what we needed them to be informed of, and really that was the beginning of starting the relationship building using social media. So 2008, 2009 is where it really became apparent to me that this was going to be a tool valuable to law enforcement. In the beginning, sorry.
And how did your senior management respond to you introducing social media into your daily working life?
It was interesting. We went in phases. As you can understand, Toronto was 2.5 million people, approximately 5,000 police officers, 3,000 civilian members. It's a big, big department. It's a big city. So there's a lot of change that has to happen, and that change is slow. So the way it started out was actually a member of the media. I was doing a talk show at noon hour. After the show was done, we started talking about Twitter as a notification tool for when we have crashes and when my job was to be the traffic spokesperson for our department. So they thought it would be a great opportunity when I'm on call and heading out to a scene or something bad happens, be a great way to notify the media. And that's where it literally started. I saw a couple of problems with our communication reaching the public, and that's who we really wanted to reach. And at the time, media was the only way you could do it. So that was our conduit. And then this social media thing came around and started using it for media purposes, and then realized, whoa, this is so much bigger. I went and talked to my direct boss, and he looked at it. He had a daughter that was in college, thought it was a perfect opportunity because he had been hearing about it, but he asked me to keep it quiet, and we did. We started it in very slow stages to make sure that it was, bulletproof per se, that we didn't see any problems, and we could really try to forecast how this was going to go before we went to the chain of command. Very, very first meeting we had with the chain of command was with our director of corporate communications, and he said, absolutely not. This was not going to happen. It's too dangerous. And I'll never forget the professional communicator's question was, what are you going to do if somebody asks you a question? Wow. That was what it was like in 2009, trying to get law enforcement hierarchy and the chain of command to see the potential. Having said that, he was open enough to take a look at what we had done and based his opinion with a little bit more information and allowed us to go forward. And then it was moving on from the communications profile into the command profile. Again, showing them that we were doing this safe, that we were being responsible about it. We were answering the questions. I mean, that's one of the biggest part of my job ever was answering questions. So that's what we did. And we had a lot of fun with it and really set the bar for how law enforcement could use the tools. Now, the tools have changed dramatically since 2009, but it's still the same philosophy. Reach out, communicate with the public, share your mission, show your transparency, build relationships.
So it has grown so much since 2009, social media, so much so that law enforcement are beginning to adopt it right across the globe. But there was an article printed in the Irish Independent here in Ireland last week, and the headline read, police having to deal with squabbling neighbours and children being cyberbullied. We just don't have the time. They estimated that on average of 20% of the inbound calls they get in one Dublin district actually deferred to social media. How do you circle that in terms of our police officers meant to police the thin blue line of social media for the public?
I think that if the police department is going to enter into the online space as a police agency, they have a responsibility to police the online space within their jurisdiction. And there's lots of problems that come out of this. I heard a police commander actually from Europe speak several years ago, and he said that social media could end up saving police departments 30% of their operating budget. I couldn't believe that statement was made, because the other side of it, we were going to have to end up spending 30% of our operating budget to keep up with social media. And that's the reality of where we are today. Can it be a budget saver? Yes, it can. Can it also cost you time and resources? Absolutely. So when you are entering into that, and as they said, 20% of their calls are squabbles. Well, we've always had that. We've always had the neighbor disputes. We've always had bullying. It's in a more apparent and bigger sphere now, and that's realistically the biggest difference. What police departments really have to focus on, and I haven't seen enough of it, is really letting the public know what can be done in social media, what can't be done on social media, what the responsibilities of police departments are, what the responsibilities of the public are. Because let's face it, a good communications operator hears a neighbor dispute, they can pretty much put it to bed without it ever going to the agency to be dispatched to. Same thing, a really good social media operator can put those problems to bed without ever having to escalate it to an investigation or pass it off to the frontline response officers.
So you retired from law enforcement and you set up 1266. Tell
Yes.
us about what you're doing now. You're on the other side of the fence.
Still kind of on the other, well, I'm walking that thin blue line on top of the fence now. My primary responsibility that I still feel is to serve. I was born with it. I did it for 25 years as a police officer. I did it prior to that as a security guard. So I've always just loved being in service. So I've just taken that out of the uniform, but it's still within me. So what I do now is I consult with law enforcement. I train them and I teach them how to use the tools of social media. And more importantly to me, because as far as I'm concerned, social media is nothing more than a conduit for communication and conversation. I teach them how to communicate better. And that's one of the biggest challenges that we've seen is police departments, they historically have not known how to really communicate. Either it was trade secrets or no comment, or we have these vaults of information that we won't release. So it's had to have been a change in how they communicate. And I really try to help law enforcement understand from the public's point of view, which is easier now as a member of the public. But because I can bring in the fact that I know where you are, I know your concerns, I see both sides of it, and I believe I can really explain it well so that the police understand what the public wants and the public can receive the message from the police in a more understandable fashion, making that circle of communication happen. On the other side of it, I teach social media.
What do you think is the biggest challenge for law enforcement right now in the digital age? And I know that's a massive question.
It's a check mark. As far as I'm concerned, it's literally the biggest challenge for them is a check mark, because they think, okay, so Twitter account, check, we've got it. Facebook account, check, we've got it. Oh, Snapchat, that looks pretty and special. And I hear people check. YouTube, check. They're going down this sheet of okay, so we're on all these platforms, we're done. And they haven't figured out that there's so much more than just opening a platform. In fact, opening the platform could be the biggest mistake if you don't know why you're doing it and you don't communicate properly. So the biggest challenge really is getting police departments to understand now that the mass rush to social media has happened by law enforcement, literally at best, 10 to 15% are really doing it well. The rest are doing it, and there's a bunch that are just doing it horribly. That's the biggest challenge, is to teach them that this is not a law enforcement tool. This is a tool that law enforcement can use, and there is a huge difference. This was created by the public, for the public. Many of the social rules were put in place by the public. It's not a place for the police to come down and start jamming everything down the throats and try to talk like the police. You want to, here's the term that I hate more than anything else in policing and social media is we got to humanize the badge or be more human. And no, we have to be more relatable. The public has to see us as a member of the public that wears a uniform and does a different job and talk that way.
So which law enforcement agency do you admire in their approach to social media?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. One of the ones that's always come up to me that I've always had a lot of respect for, Palo Alto Police and I call them their big brother, Mountain View Police Department, both in California, both very close to each other. I know the gentleman that really started their programs. They really embraced the communication aspect of it first, not the shiny new toy thing. So they really entered it into a great way. Small departments, La Vista, Nebraska, fantastic presence with what they do in a very small way. A lot of the UK, I love what I see coming out of the UK all the time. There are literally so many, like that 10, 15%, I said it's not much, but they really are a cream of crop. Miami Police Department, Boca Raton here in Florida, Orlando Police. I'll use some of the big ones that happened. Orlando Police, they really showed what they were made of when it came to the Pulse nightclub shooting. Yeah. Dallas Police Department showed what their social media program was made when it came to the officers being targeted there. A lot of the crisis that we see, you see how good a police department is using social media when that happens, unfortunately. But just as a great police department, Philadelphia Police makes me laugh every time. Seattle Police Department makes me laugh all the time. They're just great examples.
Tim Burrows, it's always a pleasure to join you and to speak to you. And tell us before we leave each other about your LESM conference that you run every year as well.
Oh, yeah, we just finished it, Joanne. You were an absolutely great presenter for that. Again, I can't thank you enough. The Law Enforcement Social Media Conference, it's a once-a-year conference. I never do it on the same dates. In fact, it's kind of about 4 months out. I think, let's do another conference. And it's just literally to address some of the trends that we've seen changing in law enforcement, give opportunity for law enforcement to learn in an online environment. They don't have to travel. They don't have to hotels. They can re-access the information at any time. So that just happened. So the next one won't be until 2018. But right now, 1266.com, we have just started booking our trainings for the latter half of the year, and we'll be in St. Louis, Kansas City, Nebraska, Vegas. We've got some stuff coming up.
Fantastic. We must get you to Europe.
I would love to come to Europe. I was working with one of the government agencies here, and I taught in the Republic of Georgia 3 times, and that was incredible. So yeah, I love Europe. I would like to see more than just airports.
I'm sure maybe we'll try and get you to Ireland. How's that?
Bring it in. I would love to. Ever since I saw Sons of Anarchy do their show in Ireland, I wanted to go. That was it.
Tim Burrows, thank you so much for joining me on JSP Talks Digital.
Joanne, it was my pleasure. Anytime and anything I can do to help you or your audience, I'm available.
Thank you.
Thank you.